Hello, it's Amanda from Crafting with Amanda, and if you want to do a couple of quick cards with me, go ahead and grab some of your supplies if you're not part of my club group. What I sent out was 2 pieces of pattern paper that are 4 inches by 5.5, and then 1 piece that's 1/2 inch or 0.5 by 5.5. I sent out some leaves, you'll need a sentiment stamp, and then some sort of a focal element. In this case, I am using it's one of those days critters from that stamp set from Close to My Heart. So go ahead and pause the video and grab those items, and then come on back and we will show you how to make some cards. So what I'm doing for my club gals is the squirrel just seemed to have too big of a edge border on it, and so I wanted to trim that off. And then I'm going back to these old club cards that we did, I don't know if it was a couple years ago even, and kind of copying myself. So I'm using the owl as my inspiration. Now I did add some toffee paper, so if you're gathering stuff, I should have included in there. Grab some coordinating cardstock that goes with your pattern paper. And then I'm just trying to play along and see kind of what is going to stand out, what's going to work, what's not going to work. I decided I didn't have a direction for my color choices for doing the card, so I'm going to go ahead and cut apart all of these sentiments. If you're doing this on your own, just go ahead and grab some cardstock and stamp your sentiments out and get them ready to go on the card. Mine end up being for this one about 1/2 inch by, I want to say, 3 3/4. That's just the length of the sentiment. But as you can see by the owl card in the upper right corner, it can be a really small sentiment, or there's going to be plenty of room if you want to do like a bigger 1.5 by 1.5 inch square kind of thing. So just whatever card needs you have, go ahead and use that. This is a very forgiving design. So here I'm just cutting apart all the different words. I gave you all the words from the stamp set so that you could have it to play with and what might work for you on these cards. I'm making some of them that have banners ends. You might want to just leave them, cut them long so that you have the option of if your banner is going to be on the left or the right. That's up to you to decide. I was just kind of gonna go for it. I know that I own the stamp set, so if I wanted to change that, I could. I don't end up using these year, week, day words on our project, but again, I just wanted to give you some options, and then you can make your own card, kind of customize it for what your needs are right now. And you can see that I'm using the point of the scissors to make sure, because it's such a small piece, that it stays lined up in my cutter. So now again, I'm kind of grab my card base, and it was funny. I was looking at this going, well, they can see the first one. Maybe I want to do some sort of fun fold with it. And then it was like, no, just go ahead and do the cards. These papers are great. I wanted to really feature these critters that have just kind of gone through a tornado or a war zone or something. They've just, they've kind of had a rough day. And so I want to make sure that that is highlighted on this. And of course, maybe chocolate will help is a wonderful sentiment, I think, at any time. So I'm looking here and I'm feeling that toffee cardstock is going to be covering too much of that background paper. And I also want to be able to utilize some of that background paper. And because I had sent you a 5.5 inch piece, I went ahead and cut off a little so that I would have a white border the same all the way around everything. So I just cut off another 1/4 inch. And then just using my hands for measurements, as you can see, I'm going to cut this to 2 3/4 inches wide. And then it's just, I'm going to guess about 4 inches tall. And I think that is what's working for me. And now I'm going to cut a frame out of the center of this. So I started on the cutter to get straight lines, and then I just kind of connect the corners with my micro tip scissors. And I love the micro tip scissors just because it's such a fine point and an easy cut. I don't feel like I need to worry about, are they going to cut? So I'm saving that paper for the inside. At this point, I'm not sure what I want to do with it, if I'm going to layer it over top. I'm just trying to give myself some options. So if you have your own paper, obviously you don't need to be as stingy with the paper as I sent to my club gals, but I'm just going ahead and squaring up all the edges and making sure that it's a nice size, trying to decide how much of a border I want, if I'm going to have the sentiment, where it's going to be. So this is just me kind of playing with papers. So again, it's about 2.5 by 1/2 inch sections, and this is just going to allow me to do all of the different stripes like I did on the owl paper. And I'm also going to cut some white daisy cardstock to intersperse with those as well. So again, I'm just making sure that it's a straight edge, and then I'm going to cut some and cut them down to the 2.5 inch mark again, so that they're the same width as the other papers. Because if you remember, my toffee cardstock is 2 3/4 inches wide. And this is why I recommend that you dry fit, just because sometimes once you put something on, it's like, no, I have too much green up top, or too much white here, or this white is too big. And so I cut it in half and kind of start over again. And because the paper itself, how I cut it, the white stripes are long, you really almost don't realize that I added just plain white daisy to kind of stretch this paper pack. So now I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges, and you can do this or not. You can also rough up the edges. This is your project, what works for you. Again, for me, I want to play with paper. We've had a hard summer, as you know, and so just being in my craft room and playing with paper is fun. So that's exactly what I'm doing here, is I'm just playing with some paper. There's so many other people that are having difficult times this summer that unfortunately I do need these kind of cards. So I start with my adhesive runner to glue the first couple pieces down, and then I end up moving to my liquid glue, and I like that better. It just gives me more playtime. And this was really difficult for me. I intentionally put the stripes on kittywampus, and so they're not exactly parallel and perpendicular, and there's a purposeful imperfection in it, because it's funny, as I was putting them together, I remember thinking, oh, this has just been one of those days. I want the card to reflect that too. I did think about going back and distressing some of them so that some of the edges would have been distressed and some of the edges would have been inked, kind of just, again, showing more of that, oh, it's just been one of those days. I can't even get everything together. But, so have fun with this. So again, I'm just dry fitting. I think the white leaves are what's going to work for me. I need to color my critter yet, so I'm going to go ahead and try the toffee leaves. Now, everybody else in the club, you got the full branches of the toffee leaves all together still. I used scraps to get my leaves here, so I am playing with same number of leaves, just they're not all in one branch. So as you know, I love coloring with the Shimmer pens. They're quick and easy and they're fun. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Mocha for the eyes and the feet and a little bit of the nose and mouth area. And I do end up not liking where I went with this squirrel. It's funny that I'm showing you coloring this, because I tried to put layers on like you do with the alcohol markers, and it just didn't work. I also had some interruptions we had some workers coming over that day that were supposed to set up for an install, and that didn't work because it didn't fit the way they thought it would. And so it was just crazy. But I think if I would have stopped after I got this color on the squirrel, I would have been happy with it, or added the colored leaves. But I ended up trying to make it more tonally work with the papers I picked, and it just had too much reds in it and I wasn't feeling it. And so you'll see here, this is the cautionary tale of what not to do. But I was trying to add some more interest in the fur and make it more scattered, and I'm using this toffee to kind of like blend everything together so that there's not the white edge on it, but also so that the squirrel itself is kind of more in the toffee tones. and I just didn't care for it. So I went back and I colored with the Bluebell ink the bird, and then with the fox I did more of the toffee and the mocha, and I left some of it white, and that just, it works better for me. So I don't know if I'll show you the squirrel on top of this card, but the colors being so soft and the squirrel being red and kind of more, I don't know, darker, just, it didn't work for me. So there's my cautionary tale. The Bluebell, the Carolina would probably work, Glacier. I even think Lagoon, even though it's represented in the paper pack, would almost be a little too rich or dark of a color if you want to color your bird. But the Bluebell, the retired color from what, 3 or 4 years ago, works perfectly. So now I've figured out what I want to do with my leaves. I am pop dotting my sentiment, and you can see I left space so that some of the leaves that I've pinched in half will fit behind it. And then I make my pile of glue on the side and just dip my ends in so I can tuck them up in, and they still have some movement to them. They hang off the edge of the paper. Now I'm going to start into the second card, and again I'm using the toffee cardstock that I pulled out and some of the white daisy just for sentiment or trying to figure out my card base here. And at first I thought I wanted to do kind of a big banner. I was going to cut a big banner end on that toffee cardstock, but then it just, the way with the sentiment having a banner end and the leaves, I just thought that this worked better. Now this card comes together very quickly, so I cut the toffee cardstock off. I don't have measurements for you. You just kind of have to decide what framing works for you and call it a good day. Now after I did that center, I realized that I wanted to put the maybe chocolate will help on the inside of my blue bird card. And so I'm just taking some of that toffee ink with a blender brush, and that's on the inside. So now you can see both cards. I hope you have had fun creating them. I do have pictures on our Facebook group, and all the supplies in that will be listed below the video if you have any questions. Please like my video, subscribe if you haven't. Have a great day. Blessings.